Hello and welcome to this video. Today we are going to be doing this lab called Passwordless Credentials for Access and Escalation. And this lab is huge. It's all about service principles, hacking into services, websites, and getting access to their managed identities and then hacking more from there. And this is a big lab, but mostly I'm going to be touching on a lot of basic stuff. Just kind of giving a nice little wave of fundamentals and things that we can use for all the labs, not just this one. But before we get into everything, let's go ahead and take a look at the exciting scenario. There are always benefits to immersing ourselves in these environments because it can get really dry if you're just trying to learn more and more and more. You've got to get yourself into it. So on a red team engagement for our new client, Mega Big Tech, we have a mission to try and infiltrate their Azure environment and access sensitive data. Let's show what we can do. This is a key line right here. Let's show what we can do. Because let me tell you, if you're not ready to show what you can do and really just get in there and explode, you know what I mean? You're not going on your tippy toes. I don't know what to do. I'm stuck here. I can't do anything. You're going in there like you're going strong, like you're a football player. And you're just about to crash into the enemy. So you got to use all your resources. You got to experiment. You got to explore. Anyways, let's get into that and let's get into AI a little bit before we start the lab. So by the way, if you have any questions, please let me know and I'll answer them. So AI. So take a look at here what I use for AI. So as you can see, I use ChatGPT. So long story short, ChatGPT is the most advanced AI by far on the market. And I'm not going to go into like the super details about why their why their model is superior and how it differs and all the technicalities, but basically I'm just going to go down to the features. I'm talking features like uploading into an Azure environment within the AI, an Azure environment that has project files full of hundreds and thousands of pages of Azure pen testing, pages that I would never read for the life of me. And instead, I upload these pages here, these PDFs, and when I don't know something, I will go into my Azure environment on ChatGPT and be like, hey, ChatGPT, or, tell me about authentication methods upon compromising a service principle, and give me the commands and give me options that are common to laterally move from that principle, from that service principle, from that SP. And now all of a sudden, instead of me going and reading 1,000 pages or reading the docs, aka that's another 2-3 hours of your life, I'll just go ahead and use this environment that I made with the textbooks that I put in to get the information that I need. And now this doesn't just give you more information. There's also options within this lab environment, within this AI environment, to completely remind the AI what you're doing and how you're doing it so that you can make sure that it responds the correct way. So here, as you can see, I put in the instructions area, I put, we are doing Azure pen testing. we are red teaming. So always keep the context within that. If I provide you data or if I paste something to you, you have to prettify it. You have to make it more readable for me. You have to organize it, so on and so forth. If I provide data about multiple things, so I sometimes I get stuck in the labs and then I just dump everything. I dump all my steps and I'm stuck in it. And I'm just like, tell me what I just even did because I completely forgot. I just went to the washroom or something. And then explain what I need to do next because I'm completely lost. Like I just went to class. Now I'm coming back and I want to keep doing the lab and I don't know what's going on. Well, you can dump everything into the AI and just let it tell you what's going on. If I provide you with any information, the protocol, I gave it protocols, rules, I gave it standards. I also included to tell me about the architecture. Because when we're pen testing, like when you're hacking, you never think in the mind of the person who made the stuff. So I always tell GPT, okay, hold on, just tell me about the architecture real quick. Like, give me the building blocks about this. I want to know it. I want to know it from the blueprint side of things. And then, after organizing, analyzing, and providing steps forward, I want the commands and I want to know how to advance. These are just some basic instructions, although you can make them to tailor the way that you want to learn and the way that you want to hack. And so this is what I use for AI. All right. So now let's get into the lab. So network, if you have any questions about that, please let me know. But yeah, for this lab, we're going to be starting in an OPSEC scenario, an OSINT scenario. So that means that we're going to be starting from the standpoint of the company. Thanks for the follow, network. The company has messed up severely, and the way that they messed up is in a way that discloses something that they shouldn't. And so when we're in this protocol, when we're in this phase of the engagement, our aim is to find publicly accessible information that shouldn't be. And this is crucial, as it was yesterday in the CTF on the bootcamp. We all found that, wait. So we're not just hacking principles or finding principal misconfigurations. You want us to conduct specific red team operations? Yeah, that's why it's called Azure Red Teaming. That's why it's trying to certify you in Azure Red Teaming. So what does that mean in this case? Well, we have this company name, and we can use a very convenient tool to search this company online in the entire web to go through this company's public assets, cloud assets, searching through the entire internet that ever exists. And so there are a lot of tools to do this. My tool of choice is Cloud Enum. I used it for the AWS pen testing certification, and I used it for GCP. And on Azure, it works just as well. And the reason why I advocate for Cloud Enum over other tools is because eventually, once you get into the real life environments where, let me tell you, you're not gonna even dream of hacking a corporate environment that only uses one cloud service provider. And in such case, Cloud Enum is going to be beneficial because it finds everything from all three major service providers, not just AWS or not just Azure. And as you can see here, since we're dealing with Azure, the flags that I'm going to be using with the tool is to disable AWS and disable GCP. That way we get it done faster. So let's go ahead and run it. If you want to know where to get this, you get it on GitHub, but let me show you. If I just search Cloud Enum on Google, and you click here. You simply clone this. You clone it, and then you install the requirements, and then you can use it like so, specifying the domains that you want to search, or a domain file with -k for the former and -kl for the latter. All right, so as you can see, we found this public storage account and a public container within the storage account, mega big tech, internal blob core windows, and the container's name being data. Now, this parameter rest type is simply how you list the contents of the container. So when you do question mark rest type equals container and comp equals list, that's going to show you the stuff within the container. So as you can see here, it even does that for us, and it lists for us that there's an sp.pfx. And so, not going to delve too much, but I will say that this is a certificate used in Azure in order to do authentication. And so right away, when you see this, that's it, bingo, you got access. All you now need to do is align this certificate with the account, with the service principal account that you want to authenticate to. And once you do that, you can populate the command for authentication using the ID of the service principal, as you'll see, and then get access. So let's go ahead and go here. And if you go here, you'll see that this is public and we are allowed to download this sp.pfx. Now, SP is standing for service principal in this case, just to confirm it if you weren't aware. However, once we get a certificate, I'm going to show some enumeration techniques to get more information about the certificate before we do anything with it. And this is one of those things where when you're learning how to enumerate, okay, and these labs are teaching you, okay, so when you find a storage, you enumerate the storage like this. And when you find an Azure application, you enumerate the Azure application like this. But then suddenly, when we stumble upon certificates, I never found in the labs or the bootcamp anywhere within the instructions or the guides or the lectures that how to enumerate a certificate, even though a certificate is going to come along in pen testing in every single domain. We are able to find certificates and deal with certificates for an advantage and an advancement. So I kind of took it upon myself in that situation. And the moral of the story is to take it upon yourself when you find things that are new to you, which nobody is teaching you how to enumerate, to fully find how to enumerate that certificate, to fully find out how to enumerate whatever that new service is. And by doing so, you'll set yourself up for success once you do need to hack that service, or once you do need to use a certificate in a completely different environment. So let me go ahead and show you how to kind of get some more information about the certificate. So firstly, we're going to go through the PowerShell list of commands to do this. All right, where is my PowerShell? So I'm going to show you what I'm using instead of PowerShell. All right, so what I'm using here is called Terminal. It's just called Terminal. Look, I don't know how I found this thing, but the best thing about this is that it has tabs and that it can provide you 3 different types of terminals. It can give you access to PowerShell sessions, CMD, and what is crazy, it can give you access to Azure Cloud Shell terminals as well. And so if you don't know how to find this, this is the default application in Windows. Just go in your search bar and search terminal. And instead of the normal CMD or PowerShell icon, it has this weird terminal icon with like 3 shades of gray or whatever. Not really sure what they were thinking or if they really thought out the aesthetics of this, but yeah, this thing is crazy because I have PowerShell here, and now I have another PowerShell, and now I can open a CMD. And later, I'll show you what to do with the Azure Cloud Shell and why that's important too. So that worked. Are we good on the cloud engine? All right. So now, once we're here, let's go over to where we downloaded our certificate. So I hope you downloaded the certificate and going into the directory of the certificate. For me, I put it in here in cyber. And as you can see, it's right here, sp.pfx. And now once we're here, let's take a look at this certificate using this command, get pfx certificate. Specifying the certificate using the -file path flag. And then this FL is something that if you are not familiar with, you're going to be wanting to use this FL in order to untruncate the command output, because everything on PowerShell is for some reason truncated. We're not going to start complaining, but just remember that when something is too truncated, you add this FL. And so as you can see here, once we delve into the certificate, it says CN in the subject. It says CN HR portal. And since we're trying to hack this company, this fake company, HR portal, we get an idea of what we're trying to get access to. We're trying to get access to a service principal that is in charge of the HR portal. And the context matters, not just for this lab. I was really surprised because most of the labs here on Clone Labs are very technical. Like, it's called Red Teaming, and there's the certifications are called Red Teaming. But this is one of the labs where the lab instructors and the designers made sure to include very key and crucial red teaming mindsets. Firstly, with the OSINT, and then with this, the association of things just based on their names and based on things like categories and things like as you'll see, this service principal have being involved with the HR portal, having to do with other assets that also involve the HR. All right. Okay, so now once we have that, let's go ahead and take a look at how to do this on Linux. So let me pull up my Kali over here. So on Linux, you can use this command, open SSL command. Oh, oops. Okay, so on Linux, it always asks you for a password, but since there's no password, you just enter nothing. And with this command, in order to kind of unravel and unpack this cert, unraveling and unpacking the cert on Linux means that we're converting it into a PEM file. If you know why that is, you can let me know, but I just know that that's how you do it on Linux. And now we have a PEM file. And so once we cat this PEM file, we're now able to see what the cert is made out of. And so here, we have these attributes. And if we scroll down to what we found earlier on PowerShell, as you can see, once again, we get the crucial information that the CN equals HR portal. And so this is going to give us an idea of what service principal this cert is for accessing. All right, so let's go back to PowerShell. And how certs work before authenticating, you have to add them. So you can use this command to add the cert, get child item, specify the cert, and then you import the cert. And after this, we'll be able to authenticate. I already imported it, so I'll go ahead and skip to the authentication. All right, so this is a huge command that we're going to use for authentication. So I'm going to go ahead and go through it slowly, and hopefully we can explain everything inside of it. Okay. So firstly, we have the tenant ID. And the tenant ID from an OSINT point of view, when we were searching through this company's public information and its public assets, we also could have simply included any of the many different ways of getting the tenant ID. So find tenant ID. And here, if we just go to megabigtech.com and put that in, we get the tenant ID. And now, before we get into the client ID, the cert thumbprint is right in the cert that we unpacked. So with that being said, everything else is standard. And this should all be copied into somewhere that you can reuse from. But the client ID is found, let me see here, in the other public blob that is within the container. So let's go back over here to our cloud enum output. And look, since we already had cloud enum to output the blobs within the containers, that means that listing the blobs within the containers was already allowed. And so there's no reason for us to go manually looking through the blobs or start brute forcing or anything of the sort. Also, right here, we have the sp.pfx that we downloaded, but we also have this applications ID, application IDs.csv. All right, so let's go ahead and check this out. All right, here we are. Oh, my bad, my bad. This is for the CTF. All right. So let me know how that's going networked. And so, yeah, once we go through this second file that we found publicly, we are able to get that client ID from this ID right next to HR portal. And with that, we can authenticate using everything that we need. So as you can see, I authenticated over here. And before we move forward, let's kind of zoom out on this diagram that I made. And let's take a quick look of what the structure is of this attack path. So in some other attack paths, you'll find that it branches out a lot. Like it could branch out like this way and go all over the place. And then we have to connect the dots like this to find the final attack path. But in this case, it is super linear, and we'll see why. So let's zoom in as to where we are right now. All right. So since we're here, let's go ahead and see what resources we have access to. Ah, okay. So Mega Big Tech HR Portal. That seems pretty reasonable as to our service principal's name. And over here, we find that this is a site that we have access to. And so since we're the service principal, I wonder what kind of access we have to this website. So if we go ahead and put in this command to find our role, using the get AZ role assignment command, we find that we're a website contributor to this website called HR Portal. And very briefly, I want to also explain that the reason why we add this dash scope subscriptions is because the roles that people assign, apparently from what I heard, is always on a subscription level. And this might be just like false news, but since that's the case, we're always going to be wanting to make sure to check the subscription level scope when we check the roles. And if you're trying to secure your clients, I highly suggest that we start advocating for more adequate scopes than subscription level scopes. And what I mean by this is that the scopes determine at what level in the hierarchy the rules apply. And so if you just think about it from a least privileged standpoint, like, look, I'm not a blue teamer, but I know for a fact that if you apply permissions to the specific thing that needs it, rather than anything within that entire subscription that has this attribute that you placed on it, is much better and safer. And so, but the unfortunate fact is that the developers and the IT are always applying it on the subscription level scopes. And so that's the story behind dash scope subscriptions. And we have select object display name. All right, so let's go ahead and delve into this website that we have website contributor for. Let's go ahead and use the get AZ web app command. By the way, just a little bit about these commands in general. When we just add the get AZ web app, are we specifying the HR portal? No, we're not specifying the HR portal. And because of this, we would actually be able to see all of the websites that we have any read access to. And I wanted to clarify that because over here, when we did get AZ resource, we simply get very minimal information. But without without taking too much time to specify resources and necessarily specify the resource group about it, and then specify the resource type about it. No, we don't have to do all that. We just know that there's a website. So we use the command for all websites, and it shows all the information about all the websites, including the one we found. And now, since we get all this information about the website, we see over here the enabled host names, megabigtech-hr-portal. And so once we find that, let's go ahead and check it out on our Linux, on our Kali. And the reason why we do that is because anytime we are checking out any website, anything at all that involves the web, we have to run it through burp. We have to run it through the burp proxy, because at any moment we could want to see what is even going on whilst we're making all these abundant requests in order for the application to function. Because at any point in that in those requests, there could be a misconfiguration or something to exploit. Also, if you're on Kali, I believe burp is installed by default. But if burp is not installed, the installation is super easy. It's like a completely it's a fully commercialized application. So you can expect like a one-click installation process. Okay, so we got a question. Let's say we found a user that as reader at subscriptions, but they might have contributor or admin level at resource, VM, store, file, attack. How can we find these if we wanted to look further? So firstly, the short answer for this is to add all the scopes that you're trying to check. So where's the command that we used? All right. So let's take this command and let's do something fun and educational to see if they have anything on any other scope. Let's go to ChatGPT, paste the command we used, and this is what I do. If you change the command above to ones of other scopes, because I want to check if the service principal has any roles on other scopes. And as you can see, the context that I gave it is so minimal. And the reason being is because I already set it up. I already set it up to be my hacker assistant. There's no reason for me to tell it everything over from the start of, hey, I'm doing this, I'm in a lab and I did this, and then I'm doing this, and this is how this works, but I don't know how this other thing works. I just tell it, hey, look, change the command above. I'm trying to check this other stuff. And that's literally it. I'm talking to it like it's a human. All right. Service principal object ID. So let's try this one. Where's my service principal object ID? All right, we get nothing. So let's try the resource group name. Maybe it has scopes on the resource group. Okay. Maybe on a specific resource. So in here, we would then take this command like this. And as you can see here, we need to add the resource group name and then the resource type. So instead of virtual machine, we add the website type name, the correct type name. And then we add the actual name of the website. And then that's how we can check that scope. By the way, this is using, I don't know what model this is using, but that's cool, I guess. I think they updated it because it's showing me the reasoning before it answers, and it's much faster. Okay, so let's go back over here. And now we're opening up our burp. And so on burp, I'm not sure networked. Are you familiar with Burp Suite? So once you're in Burp Suite, we go to HTTP history under the proxy tab, and we could open up a browser so that we don't even have to configure the Firefox to proxy. But if you did, you could just use the Firefox extension to do that. But we get here and we say, this is interesting. Why don't we now go ahead and take a look at what directories are involved here? And doing that requires the tool called fuff. So I used a bunch of fuzzing tools in the past, and I used a bunch of enumeration tools and discovery tools for websites. However, I found that fuff is the best one. A few reasons for that is, the first thing is because it's made out of Go, and Go is much faster at making requests than other languages. And another reason for that is the customization potential that it has for fuzzing the websites. And so Fuff is the best fuzzing tool for the web. And so since we got here to this website, we're looking at the website. Very standard protocol once we get to any website is to fuzz for things that we can get to. And over here, right here, we find app data. Before we go to app data, I want to talk about what I'm using in order to fuzz over here. So as you can see, I have this fuzz_lower.txt. And this is within sec lists. And if you were to copy and paste this command, you would not have a successful command, because I made this fuzz_lower.txt myself. And how did I do that? What I did very simply is I said, hey, look, instead of going and fuzzing for directories first, And then after fuzzing for directories, I'll use another command to recursively fuzz for another directories, as well as starting another command to fuzz for files within that directory. One using the word list for directories, and then one using the word list for files, and then one using the word list for subdomains and parameters. I said, let me just put all of them into one single file, remove the duplicates, and remove the capitalizations. And that's how we get over here this fuzz underscore lower dot text. And then adding recursion to that, we now only have to run one single fuff command to fuzz the entire website. And aside from that, I also added all other word lists in the discovery web content directory of sec lists. You could probably make it even better by adding some other places, like some other word lists from places that you use. I don't know. But as you can see here, we have app data and portal. So let's go ahead and check them out. So if we get to portal, we can see that we get into the application. It seems that this was the root and not the actual root. And so if we click around, we start profiling. We send this over to our OSINT guy, get everything we know off Rosecant, start fishing him. Jack Will likes to eat at a coffee shop every day before work. We start profiling him. We set up the waitress to get some info about him. Carl Dio may be messed up on LinkedIn. He gave too much info. Okay, but on the real, let's go ahead and see what we can do to this website, given the fact that we are website contributors. All right, so firstly, does this website have a managed identity? That's pretty crucial information. I mean, if we're going to hack this website, shouldn't we at least know if we get another service principal if we hack it? And as you can see from this command, using the same get AZ web app, specifying the identity property, we can then see that, yes, it has a managed identity, and the principal ID of that managed identity is this right here. All right, so at this point, we're kind of hungry. We're hungry to hack this website in order to get access to the service principal. So let's get laterally moving. And since we have website contributor, something that website contributors can do is deploy more content to the website. If you just think about it, if I'm a contributor to the website, then probably I am able to deploy, I'm able to contribute and add things to the website. And what this means for these Azure websites is that we can use a command like this. And I'll explain this command to you. We can use a command like this to get the authentication credentials, to get the credentials used in order to deploy content to the website. So firstly, we're setting the variable for the web app, the resource group name, and then this stuff is standard. The publishing profile stuff. This is all in the Azure commands Google Sheet. or Excel sheet that I provided. And so you can find that in there. But if you don't find it, just just let me know and I will add it to your commands. So right here, we have the first deployment method that is allowed. And so long story short, there are multiple ways to deploy content to the website as a contributor. So here we have MS Deploy. Microsoft Deploy is no longer, or it's not a default thing on Windows anymore for some reason. And so you have to go and download something in order to be able to use, you have to download like the exe, which I tried to do, but it's just kind of a mess right now. And so the other way to do it is through FTP. And the third way that we're also not going to look at is through zip deploy. And that's where you put it into a zip file and then you upload it that way through zip deploy. But we're going to use this FTP method in order to upload content to this website. And you probably guessed it, what we want to upload to the website is a malicious web shell in order to get access to the internal, to the web server that is hosting this website. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. And there are ways to do this on every single terminal. But what I found was the most convenient way to do it is on CMD. Like on CMD, it's so straightforward that we just literally paste this single curl command and we do have to be in the correct directory. So now in this curl command, we specified that we're using FTP. We're specifying the shell.php. And then the user is the service principal with the credentials that we got from the deployment information. And then this is specifying the FTP server, quote unquote, which is the web server, the Azure server itself, with an FTP host name, with an FTP name. And with this command, we're able to upload the shell. All right. Okay, so now that we uploaded it, let's go ahead and test it out. Okay, so it looks like we did get access. And now that we have that access, let's go back into our burp and send over this access to our repeater. And I always just like to work with our access through the web if we get that access on Burp Suite. And this is because, like everything else on the web, if you do it through Burp Suite, at any point of time, you're able to do so many different things like manipulation of the request, start using scripting and different automative techniques that are provided for you as a standard in Burp Suite. If it's not provided on Burp Suite, then you still use Burp Suite because of things like being able to copy the precise header values, and the precise details of the request, copy everything into a file, and then use that file in order to do the automation techniques that aren't available through your own tooling or through other custom tooling. You can do that here when you're on a request. you just right click it and you can click right here, copy to file. And now you can do whatever you want with the specific details, which might be a requirement. Like sometimes when you're working with Azure applications, you can't you can't make requests, aka you can't use any of your tooling if you're not using the correct header values. And so that's why on Burp, you quickly copy everything and then you plug it into your tooling, and now it all works. Okay, so as you can see here, we listed the items and we get everything over here. So let's see some more stuff here. Where are we? Okay, we're in the website. Let's see, who am I? All right, we are the web server, the web user. Okay, so since we're here and since this is Azure, why don't we go ahead and see if there is a managed identity? Well, we already know that there's a managed identity, but we can confirm this. And something that we should get used to looking at is the environment variables, which disclose things that are randomized about Azure web servers, such as if there's a managed identity endpoint, then its port will be randomized. And so as you can see here, we got MSI endpoint, MSI secret. And with that being said, we are able to grab a token as this service principal. So let's go ahead and do that with this curl command right here, and I'll explain it to you. All right, so we get this access token. Now let me go back 1 second here and explain this to you. So firstly, we're using the curl command, and within that curl command, the format has to be correct. And the format for these Azure applications, websites, all of these instance things is that the format needs to include the identity endpoint. So as you can see here, we simply use the identity endpoint variable instead of specifying the specific things. And it has to target the specific resource from which you want to get a token from. So here we're going to get the management token. And then lastly, the secret, which is going to be in the variable called identity header. And so because we're using the variables instead of manually putting the specific details of these variables, which are randomized, which are different, like the secrets are going to be different, the ports for the endpoint is going to be different. We just use the variables, and that way we can copy and paste this command every single time that we want to get a token from within access, from within initial access. And of course, after you put this anywhere and you want to make a request, you need to URL encode it. So just remember that. And if there's any sort of filtering, then you can probably URL encode it, try some Gopher, try some other bypassing mechanisms, and just keep trying, and maybe you'll get a hit and get that token as well. So once we have this token, let's go ahead and plug it into our PowerShell. And plugging it into our PowerShell means that we save it as a variable. So once we get it in there as a variable, we're going to be able to reuse it with, authentication, with native API requests, and we're overall saving it into our PowerShell environment is how we want to work with these tokens. So I'm going to name it SPN token. Okay, and so now it's saved as SPN token. And to confirm, we can simply just write SPN token with the $sign. Oh, sorry. This is my CMD. Got to go back over here. All right. And now to confirm, we just go SPN token. And as you can see, because we put the variable, just simply the variable's name, then the stored token within that variable is outputted to us, confirming to us that we have indeed set this variable to the token name. And now this is kind of sufficient organization of your tokens, but in a bigger lab or in an engagement, obviously after all the security measures, these tokens should be named properly. Like SPN token should maybe be like the name of the service principal or something like that, just to keep track of all the different accesses that you gather throughout the engagement. All right, so now once we have this token in here, let's go ahead and authenticate in. I'm going to use the connect AZ account. Once we're in, let's take a look at the resources. And as you can see, you get access to the storage account, server farms, and Mega Big Tech HR portal. That's what we just compromised. All right. So let's talk a little bit about access. Okay, so we got the management token and got management access. However, the key and crucial and most fundamental principle of getting access, once you have a method of getting that access, is to get both the management and the graph access. And this is because the management access is going to provide you with the resources. It's going to show you the resources like storages, keys, vaults, and applications. And then the graph is going to show you information that the management can't about users, groups, administrative units, and the people-oriented stuff. So with that being said, how we do that is we simply go back to our RCE and over here, instead of targeting this resource, instead of targeting management.azure, we just simply target graph.microsoft. And if we send that, we get the graph token. So let's go ahead and add that to our environment on PowerShell. Okay, so now that we have that added, let's go ahead and get in here using mggraph. All right, now that we're in here, we have successfully authenticated to graph. However, we don't really need to authenticate to anything in order to utilize these tokens. Let's take a look at how we can use native API calls in order to enumerate these things using these tokens. Firstly, we set the headers variable, which is going to include the graph token that we got and specify, application JSON as the content. And now, for example, let's go ahead and look at the critical path of this lab, which is through checking out the administrative units through this graph access. Okay, so now that we have this, we can go ahead and see that native API calls are also valuable in enumeration, especially when all you have is a token, and we can enumerate them through these native API calls. And so as you can see here, enumerating the administrative units, we get these 5 admin units. We got Mega Big Tech Unit 1, onboarding engineering, contractors, user management, and lastly, we have HR unit. And so if we're hacking into HR portals, getting service principals for HR websites, HR unit seems pretty interesting to us using our foresight. So with that being said, let's go ahead and look deeper into HR Unit 2. All right. And so it says, this organizational unit allows the HR team to manage user properties. Now that seems pretty juicy to us. Let's go ahead and see what kind of roles there are in this administrative unit. Like the first 2 commands, we're going to be using these native API calls. And looking at the roles, we see that there are 2 roles just over here by specifying this. These are the formats of the roles here. And so it might be difficult at first to look at this and see the separation between the 2 items of the output. But if you look closely, you try to kind of learn where these things are separated and then try to understand what is contained inside of them. So here we start with the ID, and this is the jumble of this is the string that is the ID of the role, or the object rather. And then we have the role ID, which is this is the role ID, and then this is the administrative unit ID, and then here we have another one. And so here, as you can see, the crucial information about these roles is the role member info. And so this is the member that is in the role. It says right here, Mega Big Tech HR Portal with this ID. So let's go ahead and scroll back up to our service principal. If we scroll up to our service principal, we confirm that our service principal is the member of both of these roles. And because of this, let's go ahead and see what kind of roles that our service principal has in these organizational units. All right, let's check out this first role. Can manage all aspects of users and groups, including resetting passwords. So I don't know about you, but I love resetting passwords. So let's go ahead and see the next role that we are a part of with this service principal. Can reset passwords for non-administrative units. So this is all great and dandy, but what if there is nobody in this organizational unit, in this administrative unit for us to change the password of or to manipulate their credentials. With that being said, let's check out who is in this organizational unit. Using this native API call once again, we see that Celine Diaz, it's a bad day to be Celine Diaz. And not only that, but she is the CEO. So this is kind of huge. Mega big tech is now going down, like downtown, because we now have access to changing the password of the CEO. God knows what we're going to be able to sign for who, for however much, cash stacks. So at this point, we start bribing, we start, locking things down, asking for millions of dollars. All right, so let's go ahead and reset the password of Celine Diaz. All right, so for this, we're going to be using the update-mg user. And the reason why the reason why we can do this is, as I showed you before, we connected our graph token through the mg graph command library. And once we did that, we are now able to reset her password using the graph endpoint. And now we have this. And this is the perfect time to demonstrate one thing that I think is overlooked in Azure pen testing, which is the Azure Cloud Shell. Yep, you heard it first from me. Azure has a cloud shell just like AWS. And not only that, but according to last night's CTF, Azure cloud shells also have very valuable information that is kept within sessions, such as the command history of the user. I know it's kind of crazy, but another fun fact about it is that you can use it in Linux and in PowerShell. So let's go ahead and see how we can use it. So in this terminal, this multi-command center terminal, you can open up a new tab with the option of Azure Cloud Shell. And then if we go to login, it gives you a device code. And I already have Celine Diaz here. We put in the password that we made for her. I mean, we probably gave her a more secure password than the one she had. But, maybe we'll leave her a sticky note. All right, so it seems like it worked. I'll save everything, bro. All right, so fun fact, we are now Celine on Celine's private environment on the company's Azure infrastructure. That's pretty cool if you ask me. And so we can go ahead and take a look at things over here. Environment includes an MSI endpoint, so that's kind of nice. It includes an MSI endpoint right here, which means that we can actually grab tokens from things like this. And we can check out things like history to see if there's anything left in the history of any previous sessions that are still open for Celine. And that's all fun and dandy. But now that we're here, let's go ahead and check out how we access PowerShell. And you can do this all here, and it might be even better OPSEC for you to do that, since you are using their own infrastructure to enumerate. However, we're just going to stay nice and old-fashioned over here and go back to our PowerShell. And let's go ahead and access Celine. Let's go ahead and use this and access Celine. Hey, Network, where are you in the lab? All right. Should be good to go now. As you can see, we get a vault key. Now, I know vault key sounds really exciting. Like when you see a vault key after getting initial access, your heart is probably pumping. Like that is the vault key. Like there's some keys in there, like keys to gold, like bricks of gold. But in this situation, we get a flag and a bank pin. Now, the bank pin, may or not lead to millions of dollars. You can experiment with that on your own. But this is the end of the lab, as the flag can be inputted for super fun points. And I hope that you enjoyed. Please leave a like and comment on this video. Let me know what you want to see more about, or let me know your thoughts on certifications. That seems to be what people are up and about on. And yeah, if you want to talk about pen testing or red teaming, also let me know about that. And thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe and follow my video and follow my Twitch.